It's home from home.
It's small and state.
Re-up.
Spiritual home.
Mother's womb.
The vortex.
Home and away.
It's amazing.
Public space.
Second home. Go there.
Southbank was such a prominent part of the UK skate scene. Found out about Southbank's Undercroft through skate media, so magazines, skate videos.
We were just kids then, and when we got hold of skateboarding magazines, which were quite difficult to get, there was these beautiful photographs that were shot with a fisheye lens. So all the dimensions were kind of warped. Places like this just look incredible in that format.
I've played Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboarder on the video game actually. That was, I think, the first time I've heard about it or seen it. Virtually skateboarded here, you know.
It's not a skate park, although its status might be a skate park, it's still a street spot. And that really opens up a lot to the creative mind of a skateboarder, of a graffiti artist.
If you just want to go skating and nothing else, this is a place to really come to, because no one's going to stop you from skating Southbank.
In London now, there is 3 or 4 places that people skate where they can go and do what they do here, which is to stay all day, you know, without spending any money, without waiting for anybody to move you on.
I think the first time coming here, I remember it being a little bit intimidating. It's the same with any social situation, like the first day at school or something like that.
We found our sanctuary, we found Mecca, and it instantly became my home.
It's people who don't really have a home and they go to this space and then they skate it, and then it's just like they all come together in a group that's a family. It's a whole family in Southbank.
It's home for a lot of people, not in the sense of somewhere that you live, but as where you feel comfortable.
There's no ego, there's no like competitiveness, and that's why I like coming here, because no one's about that. They just want to skate.
So it's been a safe place for misfits to be able to come together and express.
There's such a good energy here, man, like, it's like nowhere else.
When I used to skate here, sort of like late 90s, early 2000s, obviously you had the whole Undercroft under the whole building, and you could skate Shell Centre as well. When there used to be the sort of core group of females who came down here, it wasn't so much of a circus show. You could sort of, if you weren't keen on being looked at by the public or others, you could kind of go underneath the building and have your own space to play in.
The way that we viewed the barrier when it was put in was kind of divide and conquer sort of thing, you know. It's like they wanted it to be separate, they wanted it to be a skate park and something that fits in a certain diameter.
That's kind of been the change for a lot of people. It's such a small area now with the barriers, basically inviting people to come and watch the skateboarding. And I think, you know, sometimes that can put the women off. It's not so much the skateboarders itself, it's just the way the environment feels.
You know, female skaters, you find them at other skate parks like Mile End or Bay 66 or House of Vans.
A lot of our lives are shaped by this space. I was growing up skateboarding here and I was surrounded by this amazing architecture, which people say it's really brutal and it's really banal and it's really dull looking, but we've grown to love it. It's the shiny building for us, you know, the Southbank, the concrete.
All these walls have layers of paint and it's constantly growing. It's not like it's, you know, stopped and this is going to be put in a museum. What they wanted to do, make a room for it. It's like, no. Well, history is yesterday, you know, so even what happened yesterday, people are already talking about it.
And you can see the history in space. In the stones itself, there is, you know, marks of tricks that people have done that nobody even remembers anymore, that somebody might have saw that never left them. That's the kind of place it is.
People could criticise us for maybe romanticising it. It is a romantic story to a certain degree. I mean, it was people that found a space, started to use it, and that number grew, and then they become generations, so generation after generation. It's an indigenous tribe.
The continuity is the space. whether it's a whole space or whether it's a small corner of what's left of the space.
The journey is what matters, it's not the goal, you know? So, and same with Southbank is a perfect example of that. It's like you can put a room full of, you know, history about Southbank, but it's not about that because that's finished, that's it, that's a picture on the wall. But the ongoing process is what matters, the evolution of it, you know?
It's completely different to like the feeling of skating a skate park. And there's so much like flow to this place. And it breeds a certain style as well. Like you can tell who's here is local because you can tell they're skating in like the Southbank style.
It's integrated with my muscle memory, you know, the things I feel, and I can feel skating there. I'm miles away, and I can come to places that are similar and instantly remind me of it. So it's like an imprint on my psyche, you know, it's very special to me. And to anyone who's ever skated here, just the way it sounds. People can tell you exactly the way it sounds. I can hear 1,000 different sounds. Only one place sounds like Southbank, that's it.
The space is also within the people, and that has a resonance throughout people that go there.
This has been the one place that has been here the whole time. And to get rid of that for another transient coffee place seems like a complete waste of cultural history, because it's probably, apart from some of the older BFI buildings and this building itself, one of the last remnants of, you know, the reason why this place was even built in the first place, which was in the Festival of Britain.
Southbank Centre hadn't taken into account, they're pushing to show other art, but they weren't taking into consideration the actual art they had in the space already. Perhaps because skateboarding doesn't bring in a revenue, or they could put shops down here to bring in more money. It made me quite frustrated in a way, which is why I wanted to get involved with what was going on.
There was a split that happened. There was some meetings that were laid on by the Southbank Centre that we went to. Certain members of our community were really against the way that we were being treated in the meetings. Being divided into different rooms and having big screens with presentations and these grandiose plans for alternatives.
And all the skateboarders were and are defenders. They're defending their space that they've existed in for so long. So I think for me that was a real low point, when people were starting to vilify the community like that and saying it's just men, it's just white, it's just middle class. All these things were really low.
I'm a photographer by trade, and I've been photographing down here sort of since I started skating, basically, you know, my old Pentax. So I've got a lot of images of female riders, because one of the things they brought up was, you know, demographics is just white young men down here, and actually that wasn't true. There was a lot of women who skated, and they used to be quite a cool group.
I think the Southbank Centre had a problem understanding the values of skateboarders. They weren't addressing us as artists who are vulnerable, creative people who have been through a lot of struggle to get to the point where we got to. They were seemingly of the older mentality that we were like delinquents or, you know, a problem.
I can remember when Henry first said there's a position of no compromise. It's like, let's start from the very beginning, because already it felt like we were starting at the end. It's like, this is a done deal, and you're going to have to get used to it, so, you know, that's it. So I think there was a confusion of like, where are we? You know, both people had a very different view. Then the no compromise was like, let's go back. We can't start at chapter 6 if we haven't even talked about chapter 1 yet. Quite quickly the campaign realised that they need to generate some sort of funds, because there are going to be unforeseen costs. And it took a little element of philanthropy. You know, somebody had to say, look, we're going to need a legal team on here. So there was an element of like, how do we encourage a law firm or a lawyer to get involved in this?
We had a lawyer, Simon, who's not a skater.
I was approached by a couple of people who were really concerned when they found out that this application for planning permission was going to be made, and that there was talk of removing the skateboarding area and replacing it with an area under the Hungerford Bridge. And that they felt that it was all a bit of a fait accompli.
A lot of the work I was doing for the legal side was collecting evidence about the history of it. So
finding out who used it when, what sort of people. For that sort of thing, talking to people who'd used it, the different generations that are still there and were involved in the campaign was really useful.
There was never really any specific strategy. There was kind of like, this is where we need to get to, how do we get there? So let's just build stuff as we go along.
It was so hard because I had to start using language that I would not usually use to describe skateboarding because I was translating it. And every time I was saying something or putting out a video or writing something, you know, I was always conscious of what the skaters thought of it, because the biggest job was to represent them. Because this was the first time that the eyes were on the skateboard community, and there was already a misconstrued opinion of what we were like. People had this misconception that we were just lazy, sort of layabout teenagers, dregs of society type people who weren't doing anything meaningful with our life. And so I saw one as an opportunity to dispel those myths, but at the same time represent a culture. The scary thing is the more I got into it and the more politics I had to deal with, and the more it wasn't just saying the spiel in front of a camera, the more it was actually debating it in. Found like I was becoming one of these politician types, and I had to constantly check myself because there's a lot of ego that comes with that. I had to become like an avatar of myself. I literally had to create like another Henry that could deal with that. It was really, really hard to find that balance.
At the very beginning, when I offered myself to be involved in the campaign, I was like, well, what can I actually do? And to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure. As time went on and I learned more about the people and the space and the practices down in the Undercroft at Southbank, and more about the institution that I'd worked with in a loose form before, the differences of opinion and the differences of engaging, the differences of practices, you know, and how they were putting their campaign out, I realised that there was completely different languages going on, and maybe that's what I could do, is try and get each other to understand that there would be a common goal for both people that everybody could, you know, benefit from.
It's easy to look at a building and work out why architecturally or historically it's of importance, but the way in which space is used sort of changes subtly over time. It takes quite a lot to get under the skin of, well, where do these people come from? Why is it important? The really important thing is, well, what's so special about this being found space rather than something that's being created?
The best thing about the table was just the people that you met on a daily basis and the conversations that you'd have with those people.
You had people from like the age of, I guess, like 14 running around collecting signatures when they felt like it, and then people from every generation who skated Southbank as well. Like, people have been skating here since like 1973.
I feel the table functioned really as a doorway between the realm of the skateboarder and the general public. So the skateboarder that perhaps has irrational superiority, maybe because of the wounding of being abused growing up, doing something that's not really fitting in with the status quo. So that doorway opens to the public as well, which really have a conditioned view of what a skateboarder is according to media and corporations.
Through those conversations, you feel like you both kind of gained a better understanding of each other's perspectives.
And you'll just be chatting to someone like Ed Miliband will pop by and you'll like chat with him, or then the next minute will be like some like new age hippie and then you'll have a chat with them.
That barrier that was constructed that's down there now, and the observer and the user then started to interact in a really healthy way, and people started to understand that the culture that they just observed, you know, as they went past was really a profound culture, you know, and a really human element to a formal arts institution.
There's quite a few people who didn't skate themselves but are now like well part of the community because of the campaign.
And I learned a lot about myself when working here, and I learned a lot about the space and how important things like this is to people.
We changed a lot of people's minds when they came up to the table.
The tricks is just a language that we use to interpret our environment. When it came to working on the YouTube films for the campaign, I knew that my biggest job was to translate the concept of skateboarding to people who would not necessarily be open to it. Essentially, the biggest job was to explain to people that it is an art form, that it is a valid form of expression, just as dance is, as music is, as all these things, and almost separate it from the idea that it was a sport. I know this space inside out. I know what to film because I know what I'm looking to capture because I've seen it a million times before. And when you look at the kind of the films and the photos that people who don't skate take of it, they don't get it, because one, they don't see that what we're doing is all about, you have to put it into context with the relationship to the obstacle. So that's one of the things that I do naturally in my filming, is like you frame what the skater's doing around the obstacle, because that's what's important, whereas most people just follow the skater. Just look at the Hunger for Bridge video. It just had this horrible fake urban feel to it, which is probably what they were trying to avoid, but it's just any kind of institution that's that far removed from the real culture that's happening on a street level is always going to try and replicate and create these kind of pastiche culture videos, or essentially the skate park itself would have been a pastiche of our culture. So it made our job easy and exposing, because all we did was just post the video that they made and everyone saw through it. It was that bad. With the Dear Jude video, it was a message to Jude Kelly. It's politics. I took inspiration from like hip hop battles, from like MCs that had put out a track, and then the other MC would bring out one responding. I was just responding in the way I expressed myself to what they were doing. It wasn't meant for the Southbank Centre, it was meant for the average person, and the whole point of that film was to be like, we don't need words, we don't even need to say anything, just go and look at it. And that was the main feeling at the time, and that's what I was trying to express, is that like, they've got all these words, they're trying to look at statistics, they've got this, they've got that, but just take a moment to see the beauty of what this place is. That transcends any language, like you just have to look. That was all the words it needed, was Dear Jude, open your eyes. The message was we could avoid everything that actually ended up happening, you know?
We lawyers can use legal processes to send decisions back to be reconsidered by decision makers and to delay things, but it's all trench warfare. The only way that you're ever going to resolve things permanently is to sort of win hearts and minds of politicians, local people, landowners, and arrive at a sort of solution that everyone can live with.
It was amazing really to have, you know, Boris Johnson just to say, no, I'm not going to give planning permission, and that was it, you know, actually for the first time. Something to do with skateboarding as well, you know, the public have kind of taken the interest and made sure it hasn't gone.
When they told me that we saved the Southbank, I don't know, it didn't really register until much later, and then I was like so happy. I mean, obviously I cried and stuff like that, and everyone was like, yeah, drinking, celebrating and skating a lot.
The campaigners have got a lot to be thankful for in terms of what Boris Johnson did, because, you know, he pretty bravely, at a late stage in the processing of Southbank Centre's planning application, he said to Lambeth and to Southbank Centre, I'm going to direct refusal of this application if you don't amend it so as to retain the Undercroft.
I think that the campaign brought everyone close. It also, I think, brought in people who don't necessarily skate at Southbank, maybe more into the community because of the campaign.
I think it's sort of brought back a atmosphere, because I think with Southbank, when it was cut off, you kind of had this atmosphere of skating. It was a little bit disjointed, you had your locals, but I think with the whole campaign it's brought a lot of people together, and it's made it a lot, you know, friendlier again to come down here. So especially if you are a woman and you want to skate down here, you know a lot more people.
There's this whole generational paradox where it becomes the younger people touting about history and the older people talking about compromise, and really is, you know, a very unique case which I think challenged a lot of people's ideas about this generation, about how they feel about their history and Britain itself, and just in general about skateboarding, about whether that is a worthwhile pursuit.
If this is a victory, then that's it. There's nothing else. This has to be the beginning of something. We have shown young people that it's cool to care about what goes on in your city.
I just want to see like more and more kids just coming down, and you see it every day, just new kids coming down and getting hyped on being outside and being amongst their friends and skating and getting enjoyment out of, I guess, just a really like positive creative pursuit, which is something that, I don't know, I've been part of for quite a few years now, and I've got a lot of like life experiences from.
From the campaign, it's filled me with hope, but there's a long way to go. But ultimately, the change is from the next generation.
We're currently pressing to restore the space to its original size and its original design, because there's actually 2/3 of this space that is put behind the temporary hoardings.
that piece of history that they've taken away from people who need a home and who skated it back in the day. Like, I hear people say, like, oh yeah, it used to be so big and there were so many more skaters and it was just amazing.
Perhaps in the future we'll be able to skate the space as it was originally found in 1973.